annexation of the Norton Lakes property. First of all, welcome. I love to see folks from the public here. Our meetings are every month. And see some of you, but glad to have you. So it's always nice to see people from the public at our meetings. Let me kind of explain how the process is going to go this morning. There's going to be a couple of brief presentations from, I believe, the party that wants to annex is going to do a brief presentation, and then our engineer will do a brief presentation. And then we're going to open it up at that point in time to public comments. Okay? If anybody would like to make a comment, I think it would be appropriate to maybe start a list, and we can kind of call on people in order that they sign up. We have always had a policy that sometimes that particular segment can get very long. So what we'd like you to do, if you have a question that we can answer kind of very quickly and very readily, we're going to go ahead and do that today, especially since there's so many folks here. But if it's a long, kind of drawn-out question, I'd ask you to submit it to us in writing. We would be happy to respond to any one of your questions. I know that we received a pretty extensive FOIA request from Mr. Fiala. Be happy to provide you with any of that information. And then furthermore, if y'all would like to meet with, myself or one of the other trustees individually and the appropriate engineer or our members of our staff, we're going to make ourselves perfectly available for that, okay? Just to make sure that any questions that y'all have will be answered. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the annexation proposal presentation.
Okay, my name is Pat Griffin. My address is 40W270B La Fox Road in St. Charles. I'm here representing the petitioners who are the owners of the Norton Lakes property. The owners include Hank Harrison, Brad Anthony, as well as the Norton Trusts. The property, which is adjacent to Fox Mill immediately to its east, consists of about 113 acres. We're proposing a planned unit development on that property, and we're seeking zoning for 106 single-family detached residences to be served with sewer and water similar to the other developments within the Wasco Sanitary District. Obviously, in order to do that, that property needs to be annexed into the district. We are not in the district currently. We are within the facilities planning area, and so basically we're here in front of the board today to continue our request to be annexed into the district, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Mr. Chismark?
My name is Greg Chismark, 116 West Main Street, St. Charles, Illinois. Mr. Chairman, I have a brief statement, really not a presentation as much. We have evaluated the proposed petition and looked at the capacity of the sanitary district to serve this property with water and sewer, and believe that there is sufficient capacity to provide service to the development as proposed. There are three conditions that we are requesting pursuant to the annexation, and those are, number one, dedication of a site adjacent to existing well number one site within the development. And number two is easement over open space areas for irrigation purposes. And number three is we suggested a fee amount for the annexation.
Okay. There's what happens is, as we develop a parcel, and lots of different parcels have been developed by lots of different folks, they become responsible for putting in for their infrastructure. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, partially. And now the engineer, I understand that Mr. Gorham passed away.
Unfortunately, yes.
And so is Anderson still your,
No.
so who is?
Christopher Burke
So
West
Christopher-
is our
Okay.
engineer, as of, I believe, June or July timeframe.
Okay, so Christopher Burke is now,
That is correct.
okay.
Yep. Okay. Oh, one more question, Mr. Allen?
Mr. Brizuela, I have a quick question.
Sure. I'll give you a quick
The
answer.
engineer from Christopher Burke said that he would advise the board that there was sufficient capacity to move forward with the
Right.
Norton Lakes annexation,
Right.
but he stipulated he would like to add that they want the right to spray common areas. What common areas have been identified for spraying effluent?
Okay, just like in every annexation that we do, and I believe it's every one that we've got, when you have substantial common areas, we get a blanket irrigation easement over those areas that they have in their design. So if you look at, big picture over there, you see open space areas, we're going to require, as we do in just about every development, and it makes sense. I mean, if somebody has a teeny tiny piece of, irrigation space, we may not ask for it in that particular area. Like I believe in the private parks of Fox Mill, we do not have blanket irrigation in the private parks. But any public open space, been the policy since before I was on the board, to ask for blanket irrigation.
Does the district's engineer foresee using that space in order to get to build up?
Well, that's a very technical question. I mean, I've learned one thing in Wasco Sanitary, never say never.
So you're speaking of both the space in the new project as well as the existing easements you have within Fox Mill?
That's right, and several other areas throughout our FPA that we have irrigation easements, okay, which have existed since the beginning of time. I know that there was a letter or comment made by someone, those irrigation easements, which by the way I live on, open space, which has a blanket irrigation easement on it. Okay? I mean, would affect me personally. If that makes anybody else more comfortable or not. It's our policy.
Some public trust. That's all I have to say.
Okay, we appreciate your comments.
Raul, may I make one more question, please?
Sure. For the record.
You're dismissing your own report of 16 months ago, the Resic engineering report, and you are not abiding by the conclusions those engineers came to on the advice of your current engineer. For the record and for this court reporter, would you allow your engineer to explain why this Resic report is bunk?
First of all, I don't think we've made the statement the resident report is bunk.
Well, you're ignoring it. I assume you don't believe it's valid.
Why don't we meet after the meeting?
No, I would love it for the record. I would like to hear you, for the record, explain why the Resic report is not valid.
You know what, I mean, that is a very, very long answer.
And it's a critical statement for the record to be
Critical
made.
for the residents.
A statement made after the fact will not be public record, and it is important
It is
to
not our
represent.
intent that-
You said you
that's not our
represent the
intent.
people. Allow this engineer to explain why the Resic report that you commissioned is incorrect.
I mean,
Have we made that statement?
Well, you're ignoring another engineering
We've
report.
evaluated the situation, we've evaluated the proposal and the current facility, and believe there's capacity to serve the development.
How much capacity?
Do you have a similar
Do we
report
have
that we
enough
could access?
capacity for 106
There is-
permits?
Excuse me.
you know, if you recognize.
one
Yeah.
person
Yeah, yeah, so please.
I apologize.
So-
Thank you.
At the end of the day, from the standpoint of answering this question, Greg, I mean, we're not going to take 3 or 4 hours to sit here and try to explain, because it's just not fair.